Hi, everyone. Welcome to our fifth video in the St. Joseph series, sponsored by St. Patrick Parish during the season of Lent. My name is Vicki Vickers. I'm the Pastoral Minister for Evangelization at St. Patrick Parish, and I am here to talk with you about St. Joseph the Refugee. Our previous videos have focused on him as spouse and protector, as father, as worker and carpenter, and as dreamer. And tonight I want to speak with you about him as a refugee. Like the other presenters, we don't have a lot of scripture stories about St. Joseph, but we do have this from the Gospel of Matthew that gives us a little insight into the refugee experience. This is from Matthew chapter 2, and this was a dream. An angel appeared to him in a dream, and the angel said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child, and destroy him." So again, that was from the Gospel of Matthew. So two things out of here I want to focus on. One is flee. Get up, don't pack anything, leave in a hurry. As a mother and a grandmother, I can't imagine having to take my family and leave at a moment's notice because I feared someone was coming after my children. That flee gives us a sense of emergency, a sense of panic, and a sense of you need to do this now to protect your family, to protect your newborn child and your wife. The second is the order that Herod issued. We know this to be historical, and our church observes that order to slaughter children under the age of 2 when we observe the Feast of the Holy Innocents, which is observed 2 days after Christmas. I think it's December 27th or 28th. We acknowledge that in response to the impending new king, Herod was threatened and ordered children killed, and hence why the angel appeared to Joseph and said to flee. The University of Dayton has a wonderful resource on their website. It's a Marian resource. And if you go to this site and look for Flight to Egypt, you will find some incredible accounts and some insights into this refugee experience that Joseph and Mary and the child Jesus had, the infant Jesus. They tried to trace the path that Joseph and his family took from the Holy Land, from the birthplace into Egypt, and different sites into Egypt that they might have stopped in and visited. And they based this on some oral tradition, some other gospel accounts that didn't make it into the canon, and some preaching from some early church bishops and fathers. So, but the interesting thing at the end of this article, at the end of all this information, they suggest that the exile experience, that they were gone for 3 years. There's some debate, it could have been 2 years, but the university suggests it was a 3-year exile, and that they traveled over 1,200 miles in those 3 years, which suggests that they didn't stay at one location very long. And again, if you look at that website, they kind of map out the route that they might have taken both into Egypt and then out of Egypt when the angel came back and said to Joseph that it was okay to go home. And it was okay because Herod had died, because that threat of slaughtering the baby and other 2-year-olds, Herod had died, and that order was no longer in effect. So this was not a family vacation. This was not a fun side trip to go visit people. This was run for your life, protect your life. This was, we don't know where we're going to lay our head at night. We don't know where our next meal's coming from. We don't know how long we're going to be away from our community and from our homeland. And this was over 2,000 years ago when transportation was a donkey or on foot. The article suggests that possibly a boat on the Nile River for part of this refugee experience. We know from stories we hear today from refugees today, and the United Nations Refugee Agency estimates, and their estimations are pretty on spot, that there are over 20 million refugees around the world today who are fleeing their homeland for some of the very same reasons that St. Joseph fled his homeland: war, persecution, poverty, fear of torture, fear of death. And Pope Francis, in the document Laudate Si, a couple years ago, suggests that there are also climate refugees. The changes in the climate have destroyed homes, have destroyed livelihoods. So people flee their homelands because there's no way to support their families anymore. In our current climate, in our current world, in our current environment, there are over 20 million refugees. So we look to them, and as we admire St. Joseph for the courage to protect his family, to leave his home and protect his family, I can't help but have some admiration for the men and women, for the mothers and fathers and the children that flee their homeland in search of a better life. And just like the Holy Family's trip wasn't easy across the desert on foot with a donkey, no place to rest safely or to eat, the refugee experience today is similar. They're not always being welcomed into our homes, and they're not automatically being welcomed into safe communities. They are often looked upon as people to be feared, as people to be mistrusted. So thank heavens for our church. I am so grateful to be part of a church that has agencies like Catholic Relief Services that provide for the needs of refugees. Who I think would have been there for St. Joseph. I'm sure along the journey, St. Joseph and Mary and the child Jesus ran into people who supported them and protected them and helped them. So as we look to the saints as a model of faith and an example of how to live our Christian faith and how to be in this world, I look to St. Joseph as a refugee, as a man who protected his family and did what he needed to do. And I ask myself, how do I protect my family? And I don't need to worry about some of the things he did. But then how do I extend that protection to refugees and to people in the world who are escaping, again, war, persecution, and poverty? Couple things. Catholic Relief Services, we can donate to them. We can donate to cover some of the expenses related to refugee care. We can learn more about their situation so that we can advocate on their behalf, so that we can work for policy change that either welcomes refugees into our country and gives them a better place to start their life over, or helps change the environment in their country where they feel safe. And I want to give a quick shout out to one of our parishioners. When we talk about climate refugees, several years ago when the hurricane struck Puerto Rico, there were people here who were stranded and who could not get home, who then became climate refugees. And there were people in Puerto Rico who left the country seeking a better life, seeking better opportunity. And we have a parishioner who set up an organization called Thrive, that helped provide lodging, food, and jobs. And they've kind of evolved themselves and turned themselves into a very welcoming organization that seeks to educate us about the refugee experience and about what we need to do in response to people who are seeking a better life. Local connection, a parish connection. So I'm proud that our parish, that we have a parishioner involved in that. Beyond war and persecution and poverty, I think St. Joseph also provides us a model based on his refugee experience in protecting his family. What do we need to do for our own family members? We might not be fleeing war, but how many people do we know in our family, in our neighborhoods, in our own parish who are seeking refuge from loneliness, who are seeking refuge from addiction or from anxiety? And if we can't see ourselves jumping on to an advocacy platform for global refugees, how do we better serve people in our own community when they are seeking release from something that's harming them and from something that's endangering them? So St. Joseph as a refugee provides us as a model for courage in living our faith and as a way to respond to the needs of other people in our community. Thank you.